All the devotees for today's session. So today's topic of our discussion is let's escape the cage before we age. So before we get into the discussions, let us begin the session with the prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shastras say that there are 8.4 million species of life on this planet. In other words, 84 lakh species. And these 84 lakh species have been further broken down amongst various species. What is the number? So the Shastra says Jalaja Navalakshani. That is, amongst the aquatics, there are 9 lakh species of just aquatics, the forms living in water. And Sthavara Lakshavimshati. That is, Sthavara is referring to non-moving, something like trees. So there are 20 lakhs such species, Lakshavimshati, to 20 lakhs species of non-moving entities. Krimayo Rudra Sankhyaya, that is the insects and the reptiles, there are 11 lakh species. And when it comes to Pakshi, it is Dasha Lakshanam, that is 10 lakh species of birds. Trimshal Lakshani Pashavaha, that is if you are talking about quadrupeds, so that is the 4-legged animals. So there are about 30 lakh species like that. And then finally, when it comes to human form of life, human species, there are 4 lakh species. So if you add up all the 6 categories, the total comes to 84 lakh species, 8.4 million species. So in other words, we can also say there are 8.4 million types of cages. So we are referring this body to be a cage. So why? We shall discuss that in the session today. Now the human form of life is a very rare species because out of this 84 lakh species of life, after having gone through evolution through different species, finally we come to this human form. Now what do you mean by 4 lakh species within human form of life itself? So these 4 lakh species is nothing but the categorization in terms of different permutation and combination of sattva, raja and tamo gunas, the qualities, the modes of nature that govern our mind. So the person could be more sattvic and less rajasic and tamasic, or a person could be of more tamasic, ignorant, and less of sattvic and rajasic, or more of rajasic, the less of the other two. So the different combination of these 3 gunas, modes of nature, sattva, raja, tama, will lead to 4 lakh species of human life. So the Shastras explain that if one has to come to the human form of life, he has to go through a lot of struggle through all the other forms of life. That is what Darwin's theory of evolution talks about. So now Krishna also tells in the Bhagavad-Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye, yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Manushyanam sahasreshu, that is, first of all, to get a human form of life, it is very rare. It's one of the rarest thing possible. And after having gotten a human form of life, to endure for perfection is even more rare. So because, see, just like, let us take a simple example. Say suppose in a professional career, we would have started with a simple manager, clerk, something like that. And after about 2.5, 3 decades, 4 decades of work, we would have risen to a particular position, say director or CEO or whatever CXOs. Now, if somebody untimely retires from that position, what do we feel? Because he has gone through a lot of struggle, right? So on similar lines, the Shastras explain to us that we all have gone through millions of these forms of life to come to this human form of life. And in fact, whatever we refer to 8.4 million cages, referring to 8.4 million species of life existing on this planet, if we have to escape this cage, the key is available only in the human form of life. In no other form we can have this jignasaha. Jignasaha means contemplation, thinking about the purpose of life. None of these things exist in any other species of life. It is possible only in the human form of life. So that is why human form of life is one of the rarest gifts. We all have gone through a lot of struggle before we reach this position of getting a human body. That is why man is a rational animal. So that rationality is an exclusive feature given only to human beings. So is it that after having gotten human form of life, will everybody get the key to escape the cage? No. That is what Krishna is explaining this verse. First of all, human form of life is very rare. And amongst this human form of life, those who have got this human form of life, only few people will endeavor for perfection. Manushyanam sahasreshu, that is out of thousands of men, only one will endeavor for perfection. And out of those who are trying for perfection, only few will achieve perfection. Yatatam api siddhana kastin mam vetti tatvataha. So if though amongst those who are trying for perfection also, only rarely somebody will succeed. In other words, human form of life is rare. After that, somebody desiring for perfection, pursuing a spiritual life, understanding that I need to escape this cage is very rare. And amongst those who are trying, because even within the spiritual realm, there is so much of distraction. Especially in the Kali Yuga, so there are so many bogus methods by which people are deceived. So that is why Krishna said, even amongst those who are trying for perfection, only a few will achieve the perfection. So now perfection or escaping the cage of this body, what does this mean? It means that this body within this material world is undergoing some tribulations. The four main tribulations are Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Birth, death, old age and disease. So now to escape the cage, escape the 8.4 million cages, it means that to achieve a state where we need not go through the birth, death, old age and death experience again and again. That is the meaning of escaping the cage. So now one may say, no, what is wrong with this? Especially people can understand death, disease and old age, but people also question, Swamiji, why is birth a pain? So Bhagavatam explains the complete process of how a child is born from the time of mother conceiving till the child is delivered. What is the kind of struggle and tribulation that the child goes through is very nicely explained in Bhagavatam. And based on this explanation, So we have got a short video, so that will be shown to you now. It's a 6 or a 7 minute video. Please watch this video carefully. Based on the explanation of Bhagavatam, this video has been made, and we shall continue the discussion after having watched this video.
Then the body is finished and the soul again enters another body. This is called transmigration. What is the next body you are going to get? You must have information.
video of Janma, that is how even birth is very painful. So this is based on the explanation given in Srimad Bhagavatam, that after mother conceives the child, so the child has to stay in the mother's womb for 9 months. So that's not a pleasant thing for the child. So it undergoes a lot of tribulations, as we saw in the video. And therefore, Janma is also counted as one of the 4 major sufferings amongst Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi: birth, death, old age and disease. So now, people ask this question that why should we at all try to escape this cage? So is there a way? Yes, we should escape this cage so that we don't face these tribulations. If you observe, take any of us, none of us want to get old, none of us want to die, none of us want to get sick. That is because that's our nature. Why are we feeling that we don't want to face this? Because that's our original nature. But now, because we are in a foreign nature, these things are, enforced upon us. We are trying to resist that. That itself is a proof that we belong to another nature, another world, where these tribulations of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi do not bother us. I wish to share with you all an interesting story regarding a person by name Amrita. Amrita was a person, a man, who very quickly understands that he doesn't want to experience the pain of getting separated from his near and dear ones. But he also understands that death is inevitable. That is why we hear of a phrase, as sure as death. So in that way, he was intelligent. So he knew that he cannot escape death, but then he wanted a different kind of an arrangement. So what did he do? So he decided to do a penance to please Yamaraj. Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. So Amrita went through many years of penance and austerities to please Yamaraj. And finally, Yamaraj was very pleased with Amrita's penance, and he appeared in front of Amrita and expressed his surprise that people do not want to see me at all. Even at the point of death, they don't wish to see me. And how is it that you are doing a penance to see me? What is it that you want from me? So then Amrita discloses his heart to Yamaraj. He says, "Oh Lord, I do understand that death is inevitable, but can you please give me a boon or a facility wherein you give me one notification, one advance notice before my death?" And this is very much necessary because I can wrap up my things in a proper way. So we all can understand what it means by wrapping up things, right? So this is what Amrita desired from Yamaraj. So Yamaraj, pleased with his sacrifice, he gave him that boon. Sure, I will send you the intimation. I'll send you the notification. So then Amrita was very happy when his penance was successful. So he went on with his life and he never turned towards spirituality because there is time and he's supposed to get intimation about death, and only when he gets intimation, he will start preparing for it. So till then, I can so-called enjoy life. So he went on with his plans of sense enjoyment, expanding many things, business, family. So with passage of time, his hair started growing grey. And at one point, he had the good fortune of meeting some devotees who asked him to take up spiritual life seriously. So Amrita told them, don't worry, I am aware of that and I'll prepare at the right time. And what was in his mind? I will get a notice from Yamaraj and then I will start preparing. So some more years rolled by and his teeth started falling away. But then he was undeterred. So he always had the confidence that there is enough time. Some more years passed by and his vision started becoming dim. The eyesight started becoming dimmer. And again the devotees met and requested him to take up spiritual life. But he denied flatly, saying, I have got some time and I will be knowing when to start this and I will do accordingly, do not worry. And then all of a sudden he gets a paralytic stroke. So with this stroke he was completely restricted to bed. He was bedridden. But then he never turned towards God because the letter from Yamaraj has not yet come. And one fine day, he dies. So after his death, when Yamaraj comes to take him, so he asks, Amrita was surprised upon seeing Yamaraj. And he asks Yamaraj, you had promised me that you will send me a notification, an advance intimation. But then you have not kept up your word, promise. How is it that I can die all of a sudden without that prior notice? So then Yamaraj says, foolish Amrita, I sent you not just one, but 4 letters, 4 intimations. So then Amrita was surprised. No, I haven't received any. Maybe there was a problem with the courier. The courier boy didn't deliver those letters. So then Yamaraj laughed at this question of Amrita about courier boy not delivering those letters. And he clarifies to Amrita, so when you requested me to send you the notification, an advance intimation, did you expect that I will take a pen and a paper, write a letter and send it to your postal address? This is what you expected from me? So if that was true, then you have mistaken completely. I sent you 4 letters. The first letter intimation that I sent you was in terms of hair started growing grey. The second intimation was the teeth falling apart. The third one was the eyesight becoming poorer. And the final notice that I sent was a stroke. But you were foolish not to recognize any of these letters sent by me, and you continued with your sinful life. So alas, you are here today in front of me. So the moral of this story is the nature is giving us all these notices to remind us that we have to start preparation. Just like when there is an examination at the end of the year, the teachers do not want their students to directly face the examination, and because we're not sure whether they'll be prepared or not. So there'll be a lot of unit tests, preparatory tests. Why is that? So that we prepare step by step, chapter by chapter, module by module. And finally, when we have successfully covered about 4 or 6 unit tests, then we are prepared to face the final examination. So similarly, these letters sent by Yamaraj are the reminder for us to take the spiritual life seriously. So just a reminder to all the viewers that if you have any questions regarding today's discussion, you can please post that in the live chat. And towards the end of this session, we will spend few minutes to try and understand and answer those questions. So the nature is giving this intimation to prepare ourselves. But then we are not paying any attention to them. In fact, I had mentioned in one of the earlier sessions that one of the most frequently asked questions when we go and meet people outside is, Swamiji, at this young age, why have you taken to Krishna consciousness? Why have you joined a temple? Because the understanding is that we have to get retired and then complete all our. So, there is no such thing called completion of responsibilities, but in quote, unquote, you have to finish all your responsibilities and then take to spiritual life. Now the question here is, where are we in our stage of life? It is not necessary that every person will be given these 4 notifications, especially in the Kali Yuga. Now in other ages, yes, there was a system of life and death. So there is one instance in Bhagavatam where when Lord Ramachandra was ruling the planet in the Treta Yuga, one elderly gentleman, he loses his son. That is, his son meets with an untimely death. So the father, completely disturbed by this unusual phenomenon, he comes to Lord Ramachandra and questions him that how is it possible in your ruling? Only when the ruler is not strong, such things, anomalies can happen. So he questioned Lord Ramachandra because of untimely death of his son in front of him. Because as per nature, he was supposed to die first and then his son. But then none of these rules are anymore prevalent for Kali Yuga. We do not know how much life are we left with in this body. Nobody knows. In fact, this is why when in one portion of Mahabharata, when Yaksha asked Yudhishthira is the incarnation of Yamaraj. So Yaksha wanted to test Yudhishthira, the principle of religion. So he asks this question to Yudhishthira, what do you think is the most surprising thing in this world? What is the most surprising thing? And then Yudhishthira gives an interesting reply. He says, Ahani ahani bhutani gachanti yamalayam sheshasthavaram icchanti kimascharya matapparam. Ahani bhutani. Bhutani is referring to living entities. Ahani, every moment, day in and day out. Gachanti iha yamalayam. So every moment, living entities are leaving this body and proceeding towards the abode of Yamaraj. Ahani bhutani, living entities, gachanti, that is to travel towards iha, from this world, towards where? Yamalayam, the abode of death. So in other words, every moment we see around us so many living entities leaving their bodies, quitting life, dying. Then he continues, Sheshasthavaram icchanti kimascharya matapparam. Although we are seeing this phenomenon all around us every moment, Shesha, that is who are still living in this world, icchanti, they are desiring, they are thinking, what is their desire? I am going to live forever. Okay, all that death is happening, that is fine, but I am going to live forever. I will never meet with death. Sheshasthavanam ichanti kimascharya matapparam. And this is the most surprising thing. If you think about this reply from Yudhishthira, this is true, very much true. We all have seen so many deaths happening, but still we conduct our lives in such a way that we are going to live forever. We make long-term plans. So this is the most surprising thing in this world. So in fact, Shastras also say that at least in this case, Amrita, although he was foolish enough not to not to identify those notifications, but many of us may not have to receive the notification at all. Like there is also an instance in Bhagavatam how Parikshit was cursed by Muni Kumara to die within 7 days. So Srila Prabhupada comments in this context that Parikshit at least had 7 days of notice. And he used those 7 days effectively to relinquish his kingdom and to start preparing for his death. But today in Kali Yuga, we don't even have this facility. So we do not know how much life is left for us. So therefore, it is not a sound principle to take up to spiritual life at the fag end. So where is that end is the question. If you are saying fag end 70 years, is there an assurance that I am going to live for 60 or 70 years? So when there is no assurance, then what is the starting point for my preparation? So the Vedic scriptures indicate the earlier ages. So that's how the human form of life, which is a very valuable gift, it was divided into 4 phases. 0 to 25 years, that was the system of Gurukula education, irrespective of whether I am the son of a king or a saint or a beggar or whatever it is. So he was going and learning the science of spirituality and other arts for living under the direction of a guru, spiritual master, Gurukula. From 25 years to 50 years, he used to render duties in the Grihastha ashram. And from 50 to 75, he was entering Vanaprastha ashram. That is, getting renounced from the family life, handing over the responsibilities to the next generation, and so on and so forth. And then after 75, he was taking sannyas and completely renouncing the world. So this was the Vedic system. So but now this system doesn't exist. So we are holding on to our so-called responsibilities and duties till the last moment. You go and ask a 75-year-old person, are you done with your duties? He say, no, many more things pending. So there is nothing called a perfect time for preparation for death. And that is why the Shastras say, Prahalad Maharaj especially advises in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, Kaumaram Acharya Pragnaha. We should start preparation from the age of 5 years, Kaumara. So not that we wait up to 70. And in fact, if you've seen any of the older day serials, when we meet, now in the current context, when we meet each other, we say, hello, hi, how are you? All this exchanging of pleasantries, right? In the olden days, in the context of Ramayana, when Vishwamitra had visited Dasharatha to request to give Rama and Lakshmana to help him in his sacrifice. So when Vishwamitra arrived at the kingdom of Dasharatha, so the first question that Dasharatha asks Vishwamitra is, Yatram Punarjanma Jayaya. Yatram Punarjanma Jayaya. How is your process of winning over Punarjanma? What stage have you achieved? Punarjanma is rebirth. Yatram is where have you reached. Jayaya is victory. So in your process of achieving victory over rebirth, where have you reached? Yatram Punarjanma Jayaya. This is the first question that Dasharatha inquires. So because this is the process, this is the purpose of human form of life. This is a very valuable gift given to us. And if we miss this opportunity, then we will be gliding down to other forms of life once again. Just imagine this statement from the Shastras. 84 lakh species, out of which human form of species are 4 lakh. After having passed through all other 80 lakh species, we have achieved this. Now in this human form of life, there is an opportunity to think of God, which is not available in any other form of life. And if we miss this opportunity, we will again be gliding down to the other species, lower species of life, and again we will take millions of years to come back to the human form. Such a rare, valuable gift it is. Now if any of you think that, no Swamiji, I am already quite old now, so does it mean that I cannot practice? No. The Shastras give us the confidence that how much time do you think is necessary for achieving perfection in spirituality or spiritual life? It is not few years or ages or lives. Even within a moment, 1 minute you can achieve, 1 moment you can achieve. And that was proved in the story of Khatvanga Maharaj. So there was a king by name Khatvanga Maharaj who had once been invited by the demigods to fight against the demons. So the demons were troubling the Devatas, and Devatas knew the power and expertise of Khatvanga Maharaj. So they requested him to help them defeat these demons. And accordingly, Khatvanga Maharaj fought valiantly and defeated all the demons, and Devatas were quite happy. So at that time, Devatas offered a boon to Khatvanga Maharaj. So you have helped us in this great tribulation, misery. So you can ask for one boon. So now, because Khatvanga Maharaj knew the purpose of life, he knew what was his prime occupation in human form of life, he asked the demigods, can you please tell me how much life am I left with? How much lifespan I am left with? So the demigods will look into that and immediately give him an answer. You are just left with a moment. Your life is going to end very soon. You're just left with a minute. So immediately Khatvanga Maharaj relinquishes everything and absorbs himself on Vishnu, and he achieves perfection. So this, of course, now there could be a different moral that we can skew from this story. So if we think, oh Swamiji, then 1 moment is sufficient, 1 minute is sufficient, so then why should we practice from now onwards? No, the moral of that story is no point in life is too late. Better late than never. Nothing is, too late for us to start. So to give us that confidence, this pastime was enunciated. But now if you ask, so then if that is true, then why should I practice from now? I will use that formula. Last 1 minute, I will remember Vishnu. I'll practice spirituality. But the question is, whether do we have that moment? Do we have that minute with us in the end? And secondly, it is not really easy to remember Lord at the point of death. Medical science explains that what kind of suffering a person goes through before he quits this body. So you will be in extreme state of pain. Your consciousness will be completely different. You can't think of God unless you have practiced sufficiently. So this practice is very much essential so that we remember Vishnu, Krishna at the point of death. So that practice is made easier in Kali Yuga by this chanting of the holy names. So this method is the recommended process for this age, and that is how in every session we go on reiterating this very point, that all this understanding scriptures, everything should finally lead us to this practice. Theory is of no use if we are not putting that into practice. There is a proverb in English: a person who does not read has no advantage over a person who cannot read. So similarly, just knowing this knowledge is of no use if we are not putting that into practice. And the best way of putting this into practice is chanting the holy names, where we are remembering Vishnu, we are remembering God, and practicing that remembrance every day. So this does not call in for relinquishing any of your duties or responsibilities. Chanting 108 times will take just 7 minutes of your day. So, but that gives you the strength to think of this life, the purpose of human form of life. All this can be activated when we chant these names of God. So, let us practice this chanting for 21 times today. Wherever you are, please sit erect and close your eyes to avoid any distraction, and you can chant along with me 21 times the Maha Mantra. Please start. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So one of the main advantages of practicing this chanting every day is we will be reminded that our prime duty in life, that how it is necessary for us to uh, escape this cage before we age. But again, the question here is, what is the age? Nobody knows. So therefore, it is necessary that we all prepare for our final journey. So in this very life, before it is too late. So we can try take one or two questions. There is a question from Mr. Sridhar. How can we explain sudden demise of person in terms of spirituality? Sudden death without notice, some very young. I mean, so I did not clearly understand the question. So you're asking, how can we explain sudden demise of person in terms of spirituality? Death, the nature of death is sudden, without intimation. If you ask, how can we understand the sweetness of sugar? Sweetness is an intrinsic principle of sugar. You cannot separate sweetness from sugar. And if at all, if there is sugar that has not sweets, then that means it is not sugar. So similarly, death doesn't come to us with prior intimation. So it doesn't come. That is how you see when people in the normal day-to-day interactions, we have heard this phrase very frequently that I spoke to him the last night. In fact, 1 hour before he left his body, I had a conversation with him. It's so shocking that he's not there anymore. Last night we all had a get together, and this morning he's not there. So that is the nature of death. There is nothing, so that is why Yudhishthira said this is the most surprising thing. Although we are seeing that happening around us, we still feel that for me it is not applicable. Sheshasthavaram icchanti, Kimaschar, this is the most surprising thing. So this is how we can explain the meaning of sudden death. So death has to be sudden. It will not come with a notice, and therefore we have to be prepared. Another question, apart from chanting Mahamantra, what other spiritual activities are to be taken to face death? So chanting Hare Krishna is one of the most fundamental and basic principles that we need to follow. The other things that we can also start practicing is reading of the scriptures, like Bhagavad-Gita, like Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, I would urge all the audience, viewers, to at least read once in your lifetime the book called Bhagavata. It is available in our temple counters. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a 12 canto literature coming in about 18 books. It is a manual how to prepare for our death. If we have to escape this cage and not go through the repetition of birth, death, old age and disease. So we have to read Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita once at least. So much of knowledge, so much of wisdom that Krishna gives to Arjuna for the benefit of humankind. It is so unfortunate that we don't even know what is there in Bhagavad Gita. So reading of the scriptures will also give us a reminder how we can prepare. Just like when there is an examination, if a student has to pass with flying colors, it only means he has sufficiently prepared. He has put in a lot of endeavors. So similarly, if we have to achieve success, that is to remember God at the point of death, that is possible only when we have practiced enough. So reading of scriptures will remind us of that prime goal and our flickering nature in this body, and it will prepare us to that consciousness. So reading of scriptures in addition to chanting is a very good combination that will help us escape this cage. Another question, last question. What is the easiest way to be spiritual? These days I have heard many people saying this proverb, I'm spiritual but not religious. Probably you also would have heard. So what they mean by saying I'm spiritual but not religious, they're intending to say that I believe in God, I believe in surrender unto God, I believe in devotion to God, but I will not do any process. Of course, they term the process under a caption called rituals. So, but I am not ready to do any of them. So, it is as good as saying, I love you, but I will not do any activity that demonstrates that love for you. I will love you, I love you, but I will not do anything to mean that I love you. This is what we intend by saying, I'm spiritual but not religious. So, because when we request people to chant the holy names, when we request them to read Bhagavad-Gita, so they say, no, I believe in God, but I don't want to do any of these things. So, both do not go well together. So, in other words, whatever you are saying, I am spiritual, it is at a very shallow level. So we have not understood what is the meaning of spirituality. Spirituality means acting on the level of spirit. What is the real interest of spirit? Spirit is different from this body. So unless we are able to spend time in the interest of spirit, there is nothing called spirituality. So this is how, so the easiest way to be spiritual is we have to spend time chanting the names of Krishna and reading scriptures. What is the difficulty in doing these two things? We have got such a nice facility, technology today, even while on the move, we can read on the phone, we can hear. So there are so many lectures of Srila Prabhupada on YouTube. All that you have to do is go to YouTube and just type Srila Prabhupada lecture. You will hear so many wonderful thoughts from Bhagavatam, which is simply presented in simple English language. So, that is how the spiritual process is termed to be Susukham Kartum Avyayam. Because in the other ages, people had to undergo penance and austerities for many years. They were supposed to stand on one leg. They were not supposed to eat for many months. So, but in Kali Yuga, our bodies are not designed for any of these kind of sacrifice and penance and austerities. So, therefore, the whole process has been simplified. Susukham Kartum Avyayam. This eternal process of loving service to God can be performed joyfully. So, chanting, it's a process, very nice process that you are connecting with God. So it will take about 7 to 8 minutes of your time to chant 108 times. And it will also add a lot of meaning to your life. You start the chanting and you start reading one page Bhagavad-Gita, one shloka every day. It will take 2 minutes. So 7 minutes or 8 minutes of chanting, 2 minutes of reading Bhagavad-Gita, at 10 minutes of your life of a day will give you a whole lot of meaning to the rest 23 hours, 50 minutes. So therefore, it is our request, please take this process. You are all very fortunate to come in touch with this knowledge of the Gita and therefore apply these teachings in your day-to-day lives and let us escape this cage before it ages. Thank you very much for all of you for joining this session. Hare Krishna.